Isn't she the one who failed basic recon, Graves? I wouldn't trust her with my lunch, let alone a squad. The laughter echoed like a firing squad, sharp, rehearsed, and merciless. Samantha. Graves, 32 years old, walked through the barracks with her shoulders squared and eyes focused forward. She didn't flinch, didn't speak. Instead, she slowly rolled up her sleeve. A tattoo emerged from beneath the dust and sweat, a black ink phoenix, but angular, almost geometric. Not ornamental, deliberate, coded. The room fell silent. Instantly. One man stood up, General Raymond Hale. His voice dropped to a hush. Where did you get that emblem? Nobody laughed. Nobody blinked. When someone is called a failure, maybe they're just hiding a story no one was cleared to know. Fort Croswell sat like a concrete scar in the middle of Texas, dusty, sun-bleached, and merciless. At 0600, reveille echoed across the barracks. Soldiers, rose-trained, shouted orders. But one name stayed on everyone's lips, carried in hushed tones between formations, Graves. Heard she left her team behind in Syria. Froze up, got her squad injured. Commands keeping her around out of pity. Samantha Graves moved through it all like a ghost haunting her own life. In the mess hall, in the training yard, even in the locker rooms. She didn't speak, didn't argue. The stories grew, teeth each retelling sharper, more colorful. Her file locked in layers of clearance couldn't defend her. No facts, just a snowball of shame that no one stopped from rolling. That morning during training, someone shouted, "Need help with the rope washout." They laughed. She climbed. No one touched her, but no one stood beside her either, and none of them had seen the tattoo yet. The Texas sun was merciless that day. Training drills left shirts soaked and tempers short. During gear inspection, Graves removed her jacket, exposing her forearm briefly to check her webbing. Someone froze. "What's that on your arm?" Private Lynn squinted through the sweat and grime. A tattoo, bold black ink etched into skin. Not tribal, not trendy. Military, deliberate. A phoenix, but not quite. Its wings were angles, not feathers. Its eye, a triangle. Geometry with intent. "Whoa. Hold up," Lynn muttered. He snapped a photo before Graves could pull her sleeve down. "It's just a tattoo," she said flatly. But the photo spread. Fast. Group chats. Dorm threads. Dark corners of discord. Nobody could explain what it meant, but they all had a theory. Some thought it was elite, others cultish. Nobody asked her, and somewhere a young lieutenant stared at the symbol, certain he'd seen it in a place no one ever spoke of. Second Lieutenant Evan Marshall wasn't the type to pry. Freshly commissioned 25, still adjusting to command, but sharp observant. During that same inspection, he passed by Graves, saw the tattoo, and paused. Something about it itched in his memory, not just design. It was familiar, like a half-forgotten password. Military, classified. He wasn't sure. "Interesting ink, Sergeant," he said, cautious. "Personal meaning." Graves met his eyes, briefly. The first direct contact she'd made with anyone in weeks. "Something like that, sir. No emotion, no explanation, just a flat acknowledgement, then withdrawal." Marshall nodded, awkward. Kept walking. But the image stuck in his brain like a splinter. That symbol. Where had he seen it? A briefing. A blurred document. An intel memo marked "Do Not Copy." His boots kept walking, but his mind stayed behind. And that night, he started digging. By lunchtime, the photo of the tattoo had made its rounds. Group chats buzzed with speculation. Rumors sharpened into mockery. Even those who once ignored Samantha now stared. She sat alone, same corner table, same posture, same silence. Her meal, an MRE torn open with military precision. Chew, swallow, ignore. Across the room, soldiers laughed over memes. One passed his phone to another. "Yo, look what she's got on her arm." Freakin'. Illuminati. Samantha didn't react. Didn't flinch when someone accidentally spilled a bottle of electrolyte mix near her boots. Her phone buzzed. A text. No name. Unknown number. Saw your ink online. Interesting choice. She deleted it. No reply. The tattoo wasn't for them. It wasn't rebellion. It was a reminder. But secrets have a way of surfacing when silence becomes too loud. The whispers at Fort Croswell grew louder, but the truth. It lived in files sealed beyond top secret. Folders labeled in red ink, Phoenix variant. Tier 6. No digital copies. Long before they called her Graves, her name was Sergeant Evelyn Drake, and she didn't exist. Not on any roster, not in any military record open to standard clearance. 18 months earlier, she'd been erased. Identity stripped past deleted and reassigned to something that never happened. Mission, profile, black tier. Triangle of death sector. 7 soldiers in 1 out. The symbol on her arm. Not a tattoo. A marker issued not chosen. Not rebellion. Authorization. That memory burned like frost in her mind. In silence, she rewatched the day her real life was cut off. Uniform turned in, badge replaced, and a new name. Stamped on a file with no return address. She hadn't failed the system. She'd disappeared for it. They called it the Triangle of Death. 3 warlord zones overlapping in chaos too volatile for UN maps, too dangerous for official missions. The objective: extract. A political prisoner, a journalist who'd uncovered war crimes across 2 continents. Evelyn Drake was one of 7, hand-picked, no unit patches, no paper trail, no backup, no rescue plan. One officer whispered, "You die. You died in a training accident. That's all your family hears." They studied the target compound on satellite overlays, marked in red. Red meant no margin of error. The insertion was flawless. Parachute drop at 0300. 12 hours of silent movement. They bypassed patrols, crawled through debris fields, and reached the compound without firing a shot. Textbook, someone said over comms. But when they stepped out with the prisoner, they weren't alone. Coordinates had been leaked, and the walls around them were already moving. The moment they stepped outside the compound, everything exploded. Sniper fire. Rockets, grenades ripping through silence like screams. It wasn't a mistake. It was a setup. Positions, compromised, fall back. But there was nowhere to run. Private Connors dropped first, throat opened by a burst from the left ridge. Then Mills trying to cover the rear one-shot straight through the helmet. In just 30 seconds, 6 soldiers were down. No chance to fight back, no cover deep enough, no medevac coming. Only 2 remained. Evelyn Drake. Weapon jammed, radio destroyed, and the prisoner bleeding unconscious, spine possibly fractured. Behind a cracked concrete wall, she dragged him into shadow. Heartbeat pounding. Ammo low. No signals, no allies. Just her. And a man whose life held the power to start or stop a war. She had 2 choices: run, or finish the mission alone. The concrete wall cracked behind her, shrapnel carving lines into her arm. The prisoner groaned, blood pooling under his back, breath ragged. He couldn't move, couldn't run, could barely live. And no one was coming. Evelyn scanned her gear. 1 sidearm, a crushed radio, 2 smoke grenades, 1 last burst of adrenaline. The easy choice. Run. Disappear into the night. Let the world forget she was ever there. But this man, this journalist, held stories that could stop wars, expose governments, save thousands. And Evelyn, she'd trained for this moment. Not for glory, not for medals, but for the choice that no training manual covers mission first, even when it's suicide. She tightened her grip, looked at the broken man beside her, and whispered, "I'm getting you out, no matter what." Then she moved. The city burned around her. What once were homes now shattered concrete and twisted metal. Evelyn moved like smoke through the chaos. dragging the unconscious journalist over debris dashing from alley to alley, always under fire. Enemy patrols swept the streets. Drones circled overhead. She couldn't call for help, her comms were fried. She couldn't fight head-on ammo too low, so she improvised. Smoke grenade, cross, crawl, repeat. A splinter of glass embedded in her leg. She didn't stop. A bullet grazed her ribs. She didn't flinch. One more block. One more turn. Just breathe. For 3 hours, Evelyn became a shadow in a city designed to kill her. By the time she reached the secondary extraction point, her uniform was soaked not just in sweat, but blood. She looked up. The chopper was waiting. She got him on board, lifted her rifle, and turned back to cover them from a rooftop that was collapsing beneath her boots. The rotor wash whipped through the smoke. The helicopter lifted, taking the journalist to safety. Evelyn stayed behind. Roof cracked beneath her. Enemy fire rained upward. She laid flat rifle steady, finger blistered from recoil. Keep them off the bird. 1 more minute. Don't let them see your fear. And when the chopper faded into the sky, too hot to circle back, too dangerous to extract. She didn't ask them to. In fact, she gave the order herself. Do not return. Repeat, do not return. Complete the mission. And silence. Just wind smoke and the slow crumbling of concrete under her boots. She was alone. No comms, no team, no backup, and the mission already counted as successfully completed. But Evelyn Drake was officially lost. The city faded behind her. The last rooftop she'd stood on, now a crater of ash. Evelyn limped forward 1 foot at a time, dragging a bloodied leg. Her water pack had ruptured. No rations, no GPS, only a compass and pain. Keep going. Don't stop. Don't think. She used broken glass to cut her sleeve, made a tourniquet with a strip of her uniform. The desert was brutal. Nights froze her lungs. Days peeled her skin. On the 3rd night, she screamed into silence, not from fear, but rage. She wasn't just escaping death. She was outrunning invisibility. By day 4, her lips were cracked eyes, swollen lungs, burned. But she crossed the line into friendly territory, alone, wounded, alive. A soldier spotted her from a watchtower. Medic, we got one, she's walking out of nowhere. They didn't know her name. Because officially, Evelyn Drake didn't exist. They didn't greet her with cheers. No salute, no thanks. Just a cold room, 1 chair, 1 table, 3 men in suits. The debriefing lasted 6 hours. No breaks, no sympathy. Every word recorded, every glance documented. What was the extraction route? Describe the engagement. Why did the others die? She answered. Clearly, precisely, like a machine trained to survive. But, behind their questions, no one said well done. No medals, no honors. Just one final line. This mission never officially occurred. And with that, her service record 2 years of excellence was quietly replaced by something else. A file marked disciplinary reassignment. False notes of failure. Errors she never made. A lie designed to protect secrets by destroying her reputation. Evelyn Drake walked in a hero. She left with a new name. Samantha Graves. And orders to report to Fort Croswell. Fort Croswell didn't know her story, didn't ask, didn't care. All they saw was her new file, disciplinary reassignment, failed squad tactics, psychological flag. So they gave her a mop, assigned her to storage closets, to clean, to vanish. Each day she moved through narrow corridors surrounded by whispers that echoed louder than gunfire. She froze up in combat. 3 guys got wounded 'cause of her. She's lucky they didn't court-martial her. She wiped sweat off supply crates while privates who'd never fired a real shot called her washout. In the break room, they laughed louder when she entered. In the mess hall, they avoided her like disease. She never defended herself. What could she say? Actually, I dragged a dying man through artillery fire while my team died behind me. That story wasn't allowed. Not in this uniform, not under this name. But she remembered. Every second. In the back of the supply warehouse, buried beneath expired rations and outdated training manuals, Samantha found a crate marked Archive, to dispose. Inside, old tactical maps, some from the Gulf, others too obscure to date. She flipped through them absent-mindedly until one made her stop cold. A red grid, angular symbols, the phoenix, her tattoo. Not identical, but close. Same geometry. Same covert signature she'd worn into the triangle of death. Her pulse quickened. She snapped a photo heart pounding and used a number she hadn't dialed in over a year. Encrypted. Untraceable. Photo sent. Caption, "They still don't recognize the emblem. How long do I wait?" The reply came fast. Patience. Truth has momentum. Let it build. She stared at the message. Not comforted, not angry. Just tired of being erased. But for the first time, she didn't feel entirely alone. It started as a joke. A few young privates followed Samantha into the warehouse, phones in hand, cameras rolling. "Hey, washout, show us how you abandoned your team again." They knocked over crates. A container of lubricant spilled across her uniform. They laughed harder. She didn't move, didn't yell. She just bent down and began cleaning it silently. The phones kept recording. Angles adjusted. Hashtags prepared. Failed. Soldier had ghost of fort. Crosswell. By evening, the video would be viral on base group chats. By morning, maybe even farther. From the doorway, Lieutenant Marshall watched it all. Frozen. Conflicted. He knew what she'd done. Or at least, he suspected. He'd seen that symbol. Read between the lines. But he also knew speaking up meant standing alone. And so he did what too many do when right becomes risky. He stayed silent. And her humiliation echoed louder than gunfire. That night, Marshall couldn't sleep. The video played on loop in his mind, Samantha on her knees soaked in oil, laughter circling like vultures. And his face? Doing nothing. He turned on his laptop. Dim light. Quiet clicks. No witnesses. He searched Military Phoenix emblem plus angular variant classified unit tattoos. Black Ops iconography. Restricted access. Most searches led nowhere. But a few threads, old military forums, dead links, declassified fragments, whispered truths. Ghost teams. Erased missions. Tactical insignias that never made it to official patch collections. And one document, Phoenix variant. Redacted, only a title. No content. Access denied. But the symbol was there. In the corner. Exactly like hers. His heart raced. She's not a failure. She's a ghost. The truth was terrifying. Not because of what she'd done, but because of what they'd hidden. Fort Crosswell wasn't ready. The message hit at 0700 General Raymond Hale was en route. ETA 40 minutes. No ceremony, no agenda. Just Hale, the legend. 40 years in service. Known for finding what others hid problems buried under perfect paperwork. Command scrambled. Uniforms straightened. Boots polished. Reports rewritten at lightning speed. Formations were set. Briefings rehearsed. Samantha wasn't on any list. Clerical. Supply detail. Disciplinary shadow. While the base polished itself to gleam, she cleaned the warehouse preparing gear for a field drill no one cared about. But Hale didn't follow scripts. He didn't start with parade grounds or officer lounges. He wandered quietly, precisely. Past motor pools, past dormitories, into forgotten corners of Fort Crosswell, closer to her, and behind those sharp, unreadable eyes was a memory of a symbol, and a mission that never officially happened. The warehouse was quiet. Dust motes drifted in beams of early sunlight. Samantha moved methodically, organizing gear hands, precise steps, efficient. It was routine. Until a pair of footsteps stopped at the door. General Hale. He wasn't supposed to be there. But something about her, the posture, the way she moved it, wasn't logistics. It was combat muscle memory. He watched her reach for a high shelf, her sleeve pulled back, and there it was. Black ink. Angular Phoenix. He froze. His breath caught only for a second. Then his voice low and absolute. "Sergeant." "Where did you get that emblem?" Samantha turned. Not hesitating, not afraid. She stood straight, shoulders squared, chin level. Eyes met eyes, and for the first time in years her voice didn't shake. Tier 6. Phoenix Variant. 7 went in, 1 came out. The air in the warehouse stopped moving. Silence held the warehouse like a trap. Even the hum of generators outside seemed to vanish. General Hale didn't blink, didn't doubt. He just turned, voice sharp as a blade. "Lieutenant Marshall. Bring me this soldier's record, not the base file. The Black Archive." Marshall stiffened. The words felt radioactive. "Sir, the Black Archive requires—" "That wasn't a suggestion, Lieutenant." Marshall saluted and sprinted out, heart pounding. Because the Black Archive wasn't a personnel folder, it was a vault. A place where missions without names lived in silence. Word spread through the base like wildfire. Hale just asked for her file. What file? The real one. Soldiers who'd mocked her now avoided eye contact. Some deleted old messages. Some just walked away silently ashamed. And Samantha still standing, still quiet, but for the first time, not alone. Lieutenant Marshall returned, hands shaking, holding a folder thicker than protocol, aloud stamped with black ink, sealed with red. Top Secret, Phoenix Variant, Tier 6, Access Only. General Hale opened it without a word. Page by page, report after report. Every detail matched what Samantha never said. 7-man team. Extraction of high-value political target. Ambush. Casualties. 1 survivor, Evelyn Drake. And beneath it all, orders to bury the truth. Reassign under false disciplinary record. No official commendation. Subject must not be publicly linked to Operation PV. Hale's jaw clenched. His thumb pressed hard into the edge of the page. Around him, the warehouse filled with silence and soldiers. No one spoke. Because the file said it all. She didn't fail. She succeeded. So well the world wasn't allowed to know. General Hale closed the file slowly. His hands, scarred from 4 decades of war, trembled. He looked at her. Not down at her, not through her, but at her the way a soldier sees another. Then he stepped forward. Voice steady, resonant, final. "Sergeant Graves, we owe you an apology. This institution owes you an apology." The warehouse, once filled with whispers, was now so silent even the air seemed to listen. While you protected lives, while you shielded secrets that prevented war, we allowed lies to define your name. We failed to defend your honor, even as you were still defending ours. A few soldiers lowered their heads. Some clenched their fists in shame. Even Marshall couldn't meet her eyes. Samantha stood still. No salute, no tears. Just silence. Because after 2 years of humiliation, words finally did what silence never could. As the silence lingered, Lieutenant Marshall stepped forward, shoulders tense, voice tight. "General, permission to address Sergeant Graves directly." Hale nodded once. Marshall turned to her, his voice cracked, raw, exposed. "I witnessed harassment. I stayed silent. I didn't investigate. I didn't question. I should have. I failed you. As an officer, as a soldier, as a human being." He took a slow breath. "I formally apologize and request any disciplinary action you deem appropriate." The room froze. No one moved. No one breathed. All eyes turned to Samantha, and for the first time, she really looked at him, not with anger, not with superiority, just recognition. Then she said calm and steady, "Apology accepted, Lieutenant. Now learn from it, and next time protect the ones who can't protect themselves." Her voice didn't rise, but it landed harder than any shout. 3 weeks later, in a secured conference room beneath layers of restricted clearance, the military did what it had refused to do for 2 years. They told the truth. No cameras, no press, no social media hashtags. Just General Hale, a legal officer, 2 intelligence observers, and Samantha Graves in full-dress uniform. Flawless, silent. Hale stood reading from a declassified amendment. Sergeant First Class Evelyn Drake, known publicly as Samantha Graves, is hereby acknowledged for her actions during Operation Phoenix Variant. Her efforts resulted in the survival of a high-value civilian target, prevented escalation into global conflict, and upheld the highest traditions of military service. He set the document down, opened a velvet case, the Defense Superior Service Medal, the Bronze Star with Valor. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. Just accepted them not for pride but because truth deserved a place in the records, even if she stayed in the shadows. After the final citation was read, General Hale looked up. "Special Operations Command would like you back. You have clearance. Rank. Full reinstatement. The teams are waiting." Samantha's hand brushed the metal case still unopened. Then calmly she shook her head. "With respect, sir, I'd like to transfer." Hale raised an eyebrow. "Transfer to where Warrior Transition Unit. I want to work with soldiers recovering from trauma, both visible and invisible." The room stilled. That wasn't the hero's return anyone expected, but her voice didn't waver. "I spent 2 years learning what it feels like to be abandoned by the system I swore to protect. I want to be the person someone like me wishes had been there." Hale didn't argue. He just nodded. Because sometimes the most valuable warriors are the ones who've already survived the battle no one saw. The Warrior Transition Unit wasn't shiny. No medals on walls, no ranks on doors. Just quiet hallways, gentle footsteps, and the heavy silence of souls learning how to return. Samantha Graves arrived with no fanfare, no ribbon cutting. Just a duffel bag, a fresh ID, and the soft creak of a worn leather chair behind the intake desk. Her first day, listening, not speaking. A Marine with burn scars down one side of his face refused to look up. A former medic with tremors couldn't hold a cup steady. They didn't need her resume. They needed something else, proof that someone understood without explanation. And Samantha. She didn't say much, until one young corporal asked, "You ever get treated like you're broken, even when you're not?" She looked him in the eye. "Yes, but being broken isn't the same as being gone." There were no flyers, no official referrals, no public records. But word got out quietly. About a woman with a geometric phoenix on her arm who didn't ask questions you couldn't answer, who listened without needing context, who understood silence. The first to arrive was a Navy SEAL. 3 deployments, no clear history, just a name, and eyes that had seen too much. Then came a linguist from an agency no one acknowledged, a drone pilot who hadn't slept through the night in a year. They didn't come through the front gate. They arrived by whispered recommendation burner phone messages, anonymous care packages, and Samantha. She didn't flinch. Each intake session began the same way. "What's your name? Doesn't matter." She smiled. "That's fine. Tell me what you can't tell anyone else." And they did. She arrived just after dusk, mid-20s. Army Ranger. Tough posture, but her eyes were empty, the kind that only come from being betrayed by something you once believed in. She sat at the intake table silent, staring at her hands. Samantha didn't push. After a minute, the woman whispered, "I heard about your story. How they judged you for something they didn't understand." A pause. I think I need that kind of understanding." Samantha didn't respond immediately. She simply rolled up her sleeve, revealing the phoenix tattoo not as a symbol of pride but of survival. The woman's eyes widened, not in awe, but recognition. "Tell me," Samantha said softly, "what you can't tell anyone else." The girl inhaled, then spoke. And just like that, the healing began. Behind the center, beneath the wide Colorado sky, a fire crackled small, steady like the hearts gathered around it. No uniforms, no ranks. Just men and women who'd seen too much and spoken too little. They sat in a loose circle, a sniper from Kandahar, a comms officer who never officially served, a pilot who flew missions in countries her passport didn't name. No one asked questions. Stories were offered, not pulled. I watched a building collapse on my team. I made it out. I wish I hadn't. They gave me a medal, but wouldn't let me keep the name I earned it under. Laughter came too quiet, broken real. Someone passed a flask. Someone else passed an old coin with a scratched-out unit number, and when it was Samantha's turn, she simply said, "The hardest part isn't what we did. It's what we still carry alone." Here, no one had to carry alone. The fire had died to embers. Others had gone to bed, but Samantha still walked the perimeter, a habit she couldn't unlearn. Under the stars, the silence felt safe earned. Then her phone buzzed. One message, encrypted. No sender ID. She tapped it open. Congressional hearing scheduled. Military justice reform. Your testimony could change everything. R. Hale. She stared at the screen. The man who once stood silent in a warehouse full of shame, now calling her to speak not for herself, but for the ones who never would. The glow of the screen lit her face, but her eyes stayed shadowed. She didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, she typed 4 words, then deleted them. Typed 2 more, deleted again. Finally, nothing. Just stood there. Because the truth was, some battles aren't fought with bullets, and some victories. Ask for your name when you've already given it away. The envelope had no return address, just her name, handwritten. Careful, hesitant. Samantha sat on the back steps, morning mist curling around her boots, and opened the letter. The handwriting was messy, honest. Sergeant Graves. You don't know me, or maybe you do. I'm the one who called you washout during PT. The one who laughed when you slipped on oil in the warehouse. I thought I was funny. Turns out I was just scared, of looking weak, of not knowing the full story, of realizing I had no idea what real courage looked like. I don't expect a response. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know your story changed how I see everything. Not just you. Myself, too. Signed, Corporal Jenkins. Samantha folded the letter slowly. Didn't cry. Didn't smile. Just slid it into the bottom drawer of her desk beside her medal case, still unopened. Some words didn't need a reply. Just a place to rest. 6 months later, a classified internal memo circulated quietly across all branches. Initiate Silent Emblem Project. Objective identify and verify service members whose contributions remain unrecognized due to operational secrecy. At first, it was met with confusion, but then files began to surface. Missions once denied, now quietly cross-referenced. Unit numbers that had been struck from existence resurfaced. Code names finally linked to real names and real people. The symbol, Samantha's angular phoenix. What once marked her as a joke was now an unofficial badge of honor. Photos began appearing in private group chats, tattooed wrists, hidden patches, dog tags engraved with no context, only geometry and silence. For every story that emerged, 10 more stayed in the shadows. But for the first time, those shadows had a name, a shape, a symbol, and those who bore it were no longer invisible. Fort Croswell used to be where rumors thrived, where silence was mistaken for guilt, where one woman's courage was crushed beneath careless jokes. But now, it became the first base to admit its failure and rewrite the script. Mandatory training rolled out, recognizing unconscious bias in command, harassment under the guise of tradition, when silence protects injustice. Walls once covered in motivational posters now bore a new one, a single black phoenix. Under it, respect what you don't yet understand. Anonymous reporting lines were launched. Review boards reformed. Disciplinary records across the base were quietly audited again, and leading the first ethics briefing, Lieutenant Evan Marshall, no longer the officer who watched from the doorway, now the one who opened it. "We failed one of our own," he said. "We won't do it again." This time, silence wouldn't win. The envelope sat untouched on her desk for 3 days. Official seal, letterhead from Capitol Hill, a single line at the top. "You are requested to testify before the Committee on Military Justice Reform." Samantha read it, then read it again, and again. She'd fought battles no one knew, carried scars no one saw. She'd already lost her name once. Was she ready to give up the last piece of her silence? At night she dreamed of things she'd forgotten. Concrete walls. Radio static. 6 names never read aloud. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. A simple yes would change everything. It wouldn't just expose the system. It would expose her, not to shame, but to scrutiny, to cameras, to headlines, to questions that wouldn't end with the gavel. And for once, silence felt safer than justice. She closed the laptop. For now, the hearing room on Capitol Hill was packed. Cameras, flashbulbs, reporters whispering names they'd just learned to pronounce. The committee chair cleared her throat. "Our final statement today comes from someone who requested anonymity, but whose experience shaped the very foundation of this bill." No one walked in. No witness took the stand. Instead, a speaker clicked on, and Samantha's voice filled the chamber, calm, steady, precise, like a mission briefing for a team that didn't exist. "I was buried to protect something bigger than myself. That was the cost I accepted. But no soldier should pay that cost alone. Silence should never be policy. Doubt should never be doctrine." The room held its breath. No face, no fanfare, just words. Real, unforgettable, and when the recording ended, the silence that followed was no longer empty. The aftermath wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Within 72 hours of Samantha's voice reaching Congress, the Subcommittee on Military Transparency filed a motion review and reconsider all disciplinary files sealed due to tier classified operations dating back 20 years. It passed unanimously. Across bases, military record offices reopened forgotten drawers. Paper folders thick with redacted lines were finally read by eyes that had clearance and conscience. For the first time, calls were made not to deliver condolences but to correct the narrative. Your father didn't die in training. He led a mission that prevented a regional war. Your discharge isn't dishonorable anymore. Your record now reflects what actually happened. In dark corners of history, small lights flickered on, not for glory, not for medals, just truth, and a name spoken out loud in the right tone at last. At the Special Warfare Center, a new course appeared in the training schedule. Ethics Under Fire, When the System Gets It Wrong. Mandatory for all officer candidates. Taught not by PowerPoint, but by story. Day 1 began with a symbol on the screen, an angular black phoenix. No name, no rank, just the emblem. Today, the instructor said you'll learn about someone who didn't break under pressure but under betrayal. They studied the Samantha Graves case, the mission that never existed, the silence she endured, the justice that came too late but not empty-handed. Cadets asked hard questions, fell silent during harder answers. They weren't being taught how to lead a mission. They were being taught how not to lose their humanity in one. And in the back of the room, hung on the wall, a framed patch. No caption, just the emblem. Samantha never taught the course. But the room knew who built it. The mountains were quiet. Twilight draped the Colorado sky in blue and gold as Samantha walked the perimeter. Same route, same pace. Old habits from old wars. Her secure phone buzzed. A number only a few had. Only the right ones. Message, new case incoming. Navy SEAL. 3 deployments to places that don't exist. Doesn't want help. Needs it. She didn't hesitate. Typed back, room available. Send coordinates when ready. She slipped the phone into her jacket. Looked out across the horizon. Inside the center, someone set a cot. Outside, a truck engine echoed in the distance. A new battle was on its way, not with weapons, but with silence, shame, memories that don't follow discharge papers. And as moonlight caught the edge of her tattoo, Samantha whispered to no one, "Let him come. We know how to hold what others drop." The knock came just past midnight. Not loud, not weak, just measured. Like everything about the man standing at the door. Broad shoulders, duffel bag, eyes like storm fronts. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't have to. Samantha didn't ask for his name. She stepped aside. "Room's ready, showers down the hall. You can talk when you're ready, or not at all." He walked in slowly, scanning the place like a kill zone. Old habits. She understood. In the hallway mirror, he caught a glimpse of her tattoo. Paused. Then, for the first time, he looked at her. Really looked. No nod, no words. Just a quiet shift in posture from threat to recognition. That night, he didn't unpack, didn't sleep. But in the morning, he sat across from her at the fire pit. No one spoke, because here, survival was the only rank that mattered. The fire was low, just like the first night, but the silence around it now was full, not empty. Samantha Graves sat in the shadows where she had always been most powerful, not because she was hiding, but because she finally chose to be there. Her phone buzzed one last time. From R. "Hail, the reform passed. Your testimony lit the spark. You've done more than anyone ever saw." She didn't smile. She didn't reply right away. She looked around, veterans laughing softly, someone playing a worn guitar out of tune, the newest arrival asleep on the porch swing for the first time in months. And her tattoo, the silent emblem, caught the glow of the fire. She typed 6 words. "I serve better in shadows." Sent. She turned the phone off and turned back to what mattered. Because not every victory is meant for headlines. Some are measured in nights, survived in names, remembered in dignity, quietly restored. If you've ever fought a quiet battle and kept standing, you're not alone. Drop A or comment. I'm still here. We're mapping silent victories one story at a time.